The following presentation is brought to you by the Realm Network.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then...
Oh shit! It's Vince Russo!
Vince McMahon's best kept secret.
I am the Antichrist of professional wrestling.
David Arquette won the world title.
I've got a wife, 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit.
How can this show be so awful, Mr. McMahon? I didn't think it was.
Viagra on a pole match.
And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass.
Judy Bagwell on a forklift match. McMahon, the family, the Rock, they screwed us all.
Now you're the editor, right?
Mankind did it! Jumpy, beat me! Goldberg steered Russo out of the cage!
I'm from New York.
I'll get downright nasty.
This is Vince Russo's The Brand.
This is going to be a dynamite show. I mean, I'll tell you right now. And here's the reason why. I don't think there is anybody else who is currently working in the wrestling business. And I'm talking about in a management position, not talent. I'm talking management. I honestly don't think there is anybody working in management in wrestling. I'm talking about WWE. I'm talking about TNA, that I would literally be able to, as a fan and as somebody with, 20 plus years experience in the business, can actually sit down with them and have a civil conversation, tell them what I think is working, what I think isn't working, all in interest to better the business and to better the product and to bring the masses back to professional wrestling. Honestly, I think this is the only guy I can have that conversation with. We're going to have different viewpoints, but at the end of the day, I'm going to respect him even more. He's going to respect me even more, and we're going to listen to each other. And I think we need more of this. I really think we need more of this because, listen, at the end of the day, we're all wrestling fans, and the bottom line is we want as many people to watch wrestling as possible. During the Attitude Era, 10 million people were watching wrestling on a Monday night. That's where we need to get back. So with all the respect in the world, I want to introduce my good friend, Billy Corgan. Billy, how you doing today?
I'm good, Vince. Cubs are doing well. I mean, the sun is shining.
Billy, we have a lot to talk about, and we'll get the small talk out of the way.
No, we'll get right into it. Come on.
No. There's a couple of things I want to touch upon first. Number one, we now have child running around the house. This is a brand new experience for Mr. Corgan. Can you tell me what fatherhood is for you and how it has changed your life, my friend?
It's great. I mean, you have 4, right?
I have 3.
I don't think you have 4.
Yeah, no, 3's enough, bro. Trust me.
Maybe I counted you in and the child. No, it's fantastic. As you know, it gives you purpose in life. And I've lived a pretty selfish life, chasing the music dream and also obviously chasing the wrestling dream. So it's great. I mean, I see life through his eyes, and I'm very humbled by the whole thing. So, but thank you for asking.
Oh, that's great. All right, Billy, number one, we have to talk, bro, because I wouldn't be serving you justice without bringing up your beloved Cubs. Bro, I predicted, listen, I'll tell you, I did my predictions at the beginning of the year. I predicted a Cubs-Astros World Series, even though the Astros are, stinking up the bed. And I predicted, even with my beloved Giants, that the Chicago Cubs were going to be the 2016 World Series champions. So far, so good.
Aren't the Astros still in the National League, Vince?
No, yeah, right. No,
I used to go watch the Astros play when they were actually in the National League.
Bro, I used to watch the Astros play when they were playing at the Astrodome. How about that?
Yeah. Do you know Sonny and Cher once headlined the Astrodome? Did you know that?
I did not know that. Do you know, Billy?
How big Sonny and Cher was?
Billy, think about this. My very first concert, Sonny and Cher at the Westbury Music Fair on Long Island, New York. How about that?
Wow. I'm stunned.
Yeah. Billy, are we comfortable with the Cubs? I mean, they're on a roll. Listen, I love Joe Madden. I said last year that was their most valuable pickup, far and away. But, like, they're on a roll. There was a little bit of a hiccup. No big deal. But as a Cubs fan, like, are there any holes, anything concerning you? Because it almost seems like things are going too good.
I think, honestly, the biggest impediment for the Chicago Cubs as a franchise is the pervasive feeling that no matter how good things go, something bad's going to happen.
Right.
I was there the night the Bartman incident happened. And as I've said a few times, the sound in that stadium after that play was 43,000 people going, "Oh my God, we're cursed." And, I work in front of crowds. You understand the wrestling pop. There's a sound that you get. There's real shock and there's like fake shock. Like when you swerve and there's like the "oh my God" shock. Like, how is this really happening? Like when no one sees a swerve coming.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, I experienced that, Billy. I talk about this all the time. My biggest experience with a swerve like that was when Rock joined the corporation. And there was a 10-second pregnant pause where you heard nothing in the arena. That
was exactly what happened with Bartman. There was about 10 seconds of like, what just happened? Oh my God, what just happened? Did it actually happen? Oh my God, it did happen. Oh my God, we're cursed. That 10 seconds was so uncomfortable. And then here came that kind of weird boo, which was, more like the sound of Satan than upset. So I think at the end of the day, here's the problem. Athletes are human beings, as we know, and everything's going great, blah, 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 blah. The starting pitcher tweaks his elbow. Now he's come out of the game in the third inning. He may not even be a serious injury. Oh, here we go. That I think that creeps down onto the field. I've seen it happen in games. I've seen it happen in subsequent playoff series. So the biggest obstacle to the Chicago Cubs as a winning franchise is the fan base. And that's, you have to give us a little bit of wiggle room. We've suffered collectively for 100+ years. My grandmother, my grandmother died at 102,
Wow.
What was the last World Series? 1908 or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so my grandmother lived and died to 102 and never saw the Cubs win a World Series. Figured that one out. Okay?
Yeah, hey, Billy, I swear to you, I thought that was going to happen with me and the Giants. I really felt that way. I've been a Giant fan, since, 69. And I went to 2012, and I was starting to believe I'm gonna die and never see a championship. That's what I was believing. But at least, Billy, listen, here's the good news. We got the Red Sox as an example.
Yeah,
they got over it.
Look, Madden's a great, really exemplary. And the cool thing is, I have a few contacts in the Cubs organization. Know the ownership a little bit, know people who know the owners, it's contacts, being a Chicagoan. And all you hear is how much the players love playing for Joe.
Yeah.
So kudos to him, because he's dealing with a lot of young men, it's the millennial generation, getting them to focus on baseball for 162 games a year. Last year they were doing petting zoos and onesie trips and stuff. And, as an outsider, you think, is that effective? Well, it must be. They love playing for the guy.
Yeah. He just seems like a great guy. Okay, Bill, let's get a couple other little things, small talk. Then we're going to get to the meat and potatoes.
You're going to lose your audience, Vince. They want to hear wrestling.
Yeah, but I got a couple other things. Billy, I'm bringing back the stash. Good idea or bad idea? Be honest.
Good.
Tell me.
Look good.
Okay, bro.
Although you could be the Sheik's manager right now.
Somebody said I could be Joey Ryan's dad, and I took that as a compliment. I'm a big fan of Joey Ryan's. Billy, listen, as a musician, and I have to say this publicly. I have to say this, Billy, please. And I know you're a very humble guy. Screw being humble. My two sons, Will and VJ, are huge Billy marks, pumpkin marks. what Billy has done for my kids, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, it's a dream come true for both my kids. He's their idol. He has spent time. He has spoken with them. But Billy, as a musician, I got to bring up this question to you, because you know what bothers me? You know who doesn't get his just due? And I think one of the greatest entertainers of all time, and I think he's forgotten by the world, and it bothers me. And one of the greatest gimmicks of all time, bro. The greatest, maybe the greatest gimmick of all time. And you and I, with our wrestling backgrounds, we've seen great gimmicks. Bro, you know who I think doesn't get his just desserts as a musician? The late, great Tiny Tim. What are you? Bro, I'm a huge Tiny Tim mark. Bro, every week I review an album. I reviewed my Tiny Tim album a couple of weeks ago. Bro, why don't people celebrate Tiny Tim?
Well, I have to tell you, I once had a Tiny Tim encounter. Did you know that?
No, I did. Now, see, but now I'm going to mark out. Now I'm sitting at the edge of my seat. Go ahead, Billy.
It's we're on our first sort of real tour, kind of 91, 90, somewhere around there. It's the long-haired version of me. Yes, I once had long hair. And I'm at a payphone, back when we had payphones. And I'm talking to somebody. It's morning. And I hear this voice next to me talking. And I'm like, who is talking like that? I could in my mind imagine who was talking like that. And I turned around, and it was Tiny Tim on the phone. And he was arguing with his manager about something. And he had painted on his cheeks little round circles of like rouge. Yeah.
That's him. That's him.
Okay. At like 9 a.m. I watched him. So then now I'm eavesdropping, and he's saying, you know, more, you got to get me more money, and then he hangs up the phone, and then he goes over to like the breakfast buffet. So that was my Tiny Tim encounter. It's not a great story, but I touched the man.
Billy, I can end this interview right there. That's it, bro. You made my day.
From a musical point of view, Tiny Tim is more of a novelty. From a musical point of view. Okay, he's a mid-Carter comedy.
Yeah, but I think you got to say this, Billy. Listen, we've seen some great gimmicks in music, and listen, I mean, I'm the biggest Kiss mark on the planet. Prince was a gimmick, Elton John was a gimmick, Bowie was a gimmick. We can go on and on with gimmicks in entertainment, but I think Tiny Tim had the best gimmick ever. I mean, I really believe that.
Well, we must give credit where credit's due. He does have, I believe, the highest rated television segment of all time. You know about that, right?
Yeah, Laughing, right? Or no, Johnny Carson, The Marriage.
That was when he got married on The Tonight Show.
Yeah, Miss Vicky.
I think they did memory serves me correct, I think he did a 76 share.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I remember.
Right. 3 out of every 4 televisions in America was tuned to The Tonight Show to watch him get married. I mean, there's a gimmick.
And Billy,
Vince Russo could have booked that right there.
I was one of those people. I remember that, bro. I believe it was 67. I was probably about 6 years old. I was a huge fan of his from Laughing, and I tuned into The Wedding to Miss Vicky. Bro, could we have a great, I don't think I can have this conversation with anybody else but you, Billy. Can we have a great conversation?
Let's do it.
Now, Billy, we're all going to like our raw souls out on the table, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Billy, I have to say this, and I've said this publicly, bro. This is not the first time I've said this, and this is why bro, I respect you more than you will ever know, and I want everybody to know that. And Billy, I got to be honest with you, bro. We've been doing podcast one now for not even 2 months, and bro, right now we're doing about 250,000 downloads a week. Bro, in less than 2. So there are a lot of people listening to this. That's why I got to publicly say this.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Vince.
Yeah. Bro, I got to publicly say this. Listen, I worked for TNA for over a decade. Okay. And at the end of the relationship, things did not go well. Let me put it to you that way. However, things did not go well. It wasn't between myself and Dixie Carter. I had a very close-knit relationship with Dixie Carter for well over 10 years. At the end of the relationship, things did not go well. It was not between Dixie and I. But here's the point. I still wanted TNA to succeed and do well because of Dixie and how I feel about her as a human being. So what happens is TNA loses the Spike TV deal, and maybe loses is the wrong word. Spike doesn't renew TNA, whatever the case may be. TNA hops over to Destination America. I'm following this, and early on, I'm kind of seeing the ratings aren't probably where both sides want them. At that point in time, I write an email to Dixie Carter, John Gaborik, and Billy Corgan, because I wanted Billy to know, because now Billy was working with them in a creative position. I wanted Billy to know, bro, I'm not, the last thing I want to do is go over your head. This isn't Vince looking for a job. This is Vince really trying to help you guys, because I think going to a new network is huge. And I kind of saw where the ratings were. I kind of saw things happening on TV, and my inclination was I want to help Dixie. That was my inclination, and I like Billy a lot. The other guy I mentioned, not so much, and I have good reasons for that I'm not going to get into. I have to say, I wrote them an email. I offered my services absolutely free, stating what I just said here. Dixie, I care about you. I love you. You're moving over to a new network. I think it's imperative that you show them something immediately. I am willing to help you for free, whether it's a consulting, whether you bring me to Nashville and pay my expenses, whatever it is. Now, keep in mind, I worked there for 10 years, okay? Offered my services for free. The only one I got a response from was Billy Corgan. Dixie Carter, who I worked with for over 10 years, did not respond to my email at all. And let me tell you something. I know Dixie, so I know that was upon direction for her to not answer my email. The other guy, I'm not even going to talk about. Listen, when somebody tells you that we no longer need your services, and all of a sudden you are losing a paycheck that you're depending on to support your family, and they're laughing at you during that same conversation, I really have a problem with that individual. And I'm not going to get into that because I'm not going to put Billy on the spot. But Billy answered my email, and I'll never forget that for as long as I live. And here he is now, ready to have that same conversation with me, because at the end of the day, I'm not looking for anything other than to make the wrestling business as healthy as possible.
And I will say, to back up what you're saying, that's the person I know personally, the person I know that I communicate with, you, my friend, Vince. So, the difficulty in that, of course, is I work with John, who I'm very fond of. I work with Dixie, who I'm very fond of. And yep. I know you, and I'm very fond of you. And and we have mutual friends, and somebody like Jeremy Borash. Yep. So it's difficult because it's almost more like, I guess the best way I could explain it, the way I see it, it's more like a family thing. It's now it may not feel that way with you. I don't have 10 years there. Yeah. That was your baby for a long time. So my point, all I'm trying to say is because I think you're being very honest and transparent. I'm trying to be honest and transparent in the same way, which is I wouldn't do this interview with many people. Yeah. And open myself up to not only the personal stuff, but also the criticisms and the questionings that come. But I think that very much speaks to our relationship. And so what I'm trying to say back is, and it goes back to the same reason I responded to your offer, was the man I know in you is somebody that I have a good relationship with and I trust. Now, I don't know you at every level of the business. I don't know you, I know there are many people in the company who speak very fondly of you. So I'm not the only one who holds that opinion. So I guess what I'm trying to say to outsiders who are maybe listening to our conversation is there's a personal part to the wrestling business that's not always easy to navigate. Mm-hmm. And so my reason for being here as not only myself, but also as a representative of the company, and to put myself and open, and I told you, you can ask me whatever you want. We can discuss whatever you want. And I think that's also valuable to fans because they have many questions, just like I did when I was a fan. I remember the first time we met, I plied you with questions for hours because as a fan, I didn't understand why you were doing this and why you did that. And you were very open and transparent with me. So I'm returning the favor in that way. And I think that speaks to our relationship. I'm rambling a bit, but what I'm trying to say to anybody listening from the outside is no matter what we talk about, it's rooted in the fact that we love the business.
Yes.
We don't necessarily agree or get along with everybody we're in that business with.
Mm-hmm.
And there are going to be disagreements. And sometimes you'll have a disagreement with somebody one week and the next week you're their best friend again.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of a business like that that's sort of always rolling forward.
Yeah.
So I have no problem discussing the company publicly with somebody like you, because I think more than just about anybody on this planet, you understand how that company works from the inside out. You know the personalities, the strengths and the weaknesses. And just like if we were talking about a baseball team or a football team, I think it's okay to break those things down very openly and transparently because there are people who are interested. And of course, we want people to give the program another chance if they've been turned off, or maybe to look at something from a different perspective if maybe they've gotten poor information. So that's the spirit that we're having this interview.
And you know what, Bill, I'm just going to end this part of it by saying this, because you said something that was very pertinent. You hit the nail on the head and very important. You talk about family. Okay. And even though my departure as a consultant was not a comfortable one, when all that passed, I was still looking at it as family, and I still cared about Dixie Carter very much. That's why I reached out. Now see, this is part of the TNA problem, and we're going to get into positives and negatives. This is part of the TNA problem. I reached out of my respect and honor to Dixie Carter and my love for a lot of the guys and gals that worked at TNA. I did not get a call back due to ego, power, politics, and all those things that kill the wrestling business. Can you argue, Vince Russo is hard to deal with, Vince Russo is bullheaded? You could say a million things about Vince Russo, but at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself the question, being that he offered his services for free and it's not going to cost us a dime, could having the experience and the knowledge and the wisdom of Vince Russo help our company? The answer to that is a positively, absolutely yes. But for all the wrong reasons, like I said, power, ego, all those things that I hate about the wrestling business, I did not get as much as a response. And now I can fast forward a couple of years later, and it is still, in my opinion, the crux of the TNA problem. And Billy said it. I know the company inside and out. Billy, when I sit down and I watched that show yesterday, and I watched all 2 hours of it, and Jeff Lane and myself, we did a very thorough review of it that's up on YouTube right now. It's free. We put it up on YouTube, and I really dissected this thing. But the problems are obvious, and I have to be honest with you. The things I just spoke about, the politics and the power and the egos, if that doesn't change, in my opinion, TNA is not going to change. And I'm going to explain to you why. Billy, let me tell you first all the positives I saw in the product I watched last night.
Okay.
All right. You ready for this?
Sure.
And also, Billy, I want you to know I brought the lovely, and I had never met her before, I brought the lovely Marty Bell on my show. I interviewed her the other day. Absolutely fell in love with her. You're lucky to have somebody like that working with you.
She's fantastic. Great person. Great. I tell you a little compliment on her. More than any talent in the locker room, wants advice, wants criticism, wants to be told, I love working with her because she so wants to be the best she can be. And that's all you ask from anybody. And, as somebody who's worked in bands for years, that's the kind of thing you look for, somebody who really wants to get better. And so a lot of respect for her. Great person.
Me too. First time I met her, and we plugged TNA, we put it over, and I really enjoyed talking to her. Okay. I sat down, I watched the 2-hour Impact. Keep in mind, Billy, I watch Raw every week because I get paid to do a Raw review show. I will tell you this straight up. If I was not getting paid to do that show, I would not be watching Raw. I would not be wasting a second of my time. Billy, I say this all the time. If all of a sudden in 2016, Vince Russo turned on television for the first time and saw wrestling, I would not be a wrestling fan today. I would not be a wrestling fan. This is the guy.
But let's stop there real quick.
Go ahead.
Because I think that's an important point, and maybe takes us more to the the 35,000 feet perspective. Obviously, a lot of people feel that way now.
Yeah.
Okay, so you and I are on the same wavelength on that. Whatever's happened is happening, and until you solve that problem, why the casual fan is no longer interested in the micro politics week to week, who's in, who's out, who's got a new deal, who slammed who, blah, 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 who's sleeping with who, blah, 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 blah. Until you bring those people back, it's just a bunch of people like us arguing about a lot of small stuff, which is important. But until you solve the big problem, it's almost, I'm not saying the small problems aren't important, but until you solve the big problem, you can't solve the small problems.
Yeah. And I can help you solve that big problem, Billy. The problem is nobody wants to hear me.
I'm you know me, I'm always willing to listen to you. Yeah. I have a tremendous amount of respect for your perspective. You and I actually tend to look at wrestling fairly similarly.
Yes.
So a lot of stuff that you say that a lot of people I know have a problem with, I find myself saying, yeah, I think that way too.
Yeah.
And I thought that way before I worked in the business in a professional capacity, and now being in the company for a while, I agree with you even more. So I'm not of the Vince is bitter or Vince doesn't know, or I'm on the other side. I think you're a visionary person who, like a lot of us, want the business to move forward into the 21st century, and for whatever reason, and we could, you talk about it all the time, it hasn't. And so it's just, I guess maybe as a foundational argument, you and I agree on that.
Yes.
The business needs to evolve forward. Now, what that is, what form it takes, how does the internet play into that, and content and all that, those are really interesting discussions to have. But I'm saying at the foundational level, I agree with you.
Yeah. And Billy, I got to tell you this. I feel 100% confident about this. I don't know if there's going to be much I say today that you disagree with, because I know how you think, and I know where your head is at, and I know where you come from. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to surprise you, and I don't think there's going to be much that you disagree with. But let me start with the positives. Okay, Billy, let me tell you this. Here's the difference between Vince watching Raw and Vince watching Impact. Here's the difference in a nutshell. When I watch Raw and the 3-hour show is over, I am pissed off. And I'm pissed off for 2 reasons. These are the 2 reasons why I'm pissed off. Number one, you literally just wasted 3 hours of my time. I could have missed the entire 3 hours and missed nothing. So you wasted 3 hours of my time. That's number one. Here's the main reason why I'm pissed. I just watched a 3-hour show that literally, it looked like you sleptwalk through. There was no effort put into it. Our fans are going to watch this no matter how bad it is. And quite frankly, I don't like to cuss, but we don't give a crap about our fans. There is no way anybody who watches wrestling can look at that show after 3 hours and be employed by the WWE and say, you know what? That was one hell of a show. We put our best foot forward. If anybody at the WWE can do that, they should be fired. because nobody can look me in the eye and tell me that after that show, including Vince McMahon himself, you can look me in the eye and say that was the best show possible we could have done. And I have the right to say that, because when Ed Ferrara and myself were writing the Attitude Era, bro, it was blood, sweat, and tears every week on that piece of paper. We worked as hard creatively as Austin worked in the ring, and Rock and Taker and Michaels and all those guys. That's how hard we worked. You're getting that work ethic from the talent. Wrestlers are blue-collar workers. They're always going to bust their ass if there's 5 people or 50 million people. That hasn't changed. You're not getting that effort from creative. And screw the creative. Vince McMahon's calling all the shots. He's a 70-year-old man. He's lost touch. He's out of touch. Nobody's got the balls to speak up to Vince McMahon. So you're a 70-year-old is writing a television show, and that's exactly what it looks like. So I get pissed off from a fan's perspective, because I sit here and I say, literally, that's the best you can do. That is the best you can do. As a wrestling fan who has seen some of the greatest wrestling in my life from every era, it's a total slap in my face. And you're not worthy of us watching that show. That's my stance on the WWE. I watched Impact last night. Let me say this. Without a shadow of a doubt, I would watch and enjoy Impact more. I would watch it before Raw, and I would enjoy it much more than Raw. I don't walk away. I did not walk away from Impact pissed off at all, and I'll tell you why. Because in watching that show, there is obvious effort. Obvious effort. Everybody there, I know the writers, I know John, I know you. Everybody there is trying to put on a good, entertaining 2 hours of wrestling. So my biggest pet peeve is effort. To me, watching Impact, there was no questioning the effort. Nobody was going through the motions and just putting a show out there. So I respect that, bro. I respect the effort being put into it, because to me, first and foremost, that is the most important thing. Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think I've been very, very impressed working behind the scenes with the attitude and the heart of the talent, and inspired by it. I've been in similar circumstances. Obviously the company's issues are sort of out in the public, and they're not ideal. And I don't think anybody in the company would say they're ideal. And I have been in situations in my life where I didn't necessarily put my best effort forward because I didn't like the situation I was in. I don't see that from anybody on our roster. I see maximum effort, a real care for each other and the product. So that's something I'm proud of as somebody who sees it and is there. And, whether I'm taping backstage segments or, doing in-rings or whatever, I see that effort. And I know that's something we're all really proud of.
Yeah. Okay. So yes. So without a doubt. So like I did not get upset watching Impact, because everybody, and not only the wrestlers, the Lagana, Conway, everybody is trying, and I see that clearly, and I respect that. I will say this too, bro. Part of the problem, Billy, it's you would understand this, and this would blow you away more than anything. Every week on my channel, we review an Attitude Era show. And a lot of times, Billy, I watch an Attitude Era show and Raw back to back. When I go back to 1998, it is clear, it is crystal clear, bro. The entire audience is eating out of our hand. We are controlling the audience. They are cheering where they're supposed to cheer. They are booing where they're supposed to boo. The nugget chants happen when Owen goes out. It literally, we are controlling the audience. Fast forward to 2016. I'm talking about WWE now. Fast forward to 2016. The tail is wagging the dog. I never in my dreams thought that I would see the internet wrestling community dictate direction to Vince McMahon and the WWE, and that's exactly what they're doing. Now, here's another compliment on the side of TNA, okay? Billy, when we watch the in-ring wrestling product at the WWE, and we see guys like Kevin Owens, and we see guys like Sami Zayn, and we see all these independent guys flip, flop, and flying and not selling anything, and there's no psychology whatsoever in the match, that is not professional wrestling. And that is where I have an issue with it. If you called it something else, I'm okay with it. Call it an exhibition. But if you still, what they're doing, what those guys are doing, if you're calling that professional wrestling, no, it's not. I grew up on professional wrestling since the early 70s. That's not what I've seen over the past 40, 50 years.
Well, just if I can interrupt you.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I've had these discussions with younger wrestlers on our roster, and even going back to my work in the Indies, where I worked with Kevin Owens, who was Kevin Steen at the time, Sami Zayn. So I did work with these guys, and work with other people of their talent. I think, and I'm not arguing with you, I'm just giving you the feedback that I got from them. They see it as a generational shift in how they want to portray professional wrestling. It's not ignorance. For them, it's a creative or conscious decision of how they want to see the product portrayed. As an old school guy, which I know you are too, I totally disagree with that. And so so I guess the question I would ask from a sort of existential point of view is the future of wrestling, generationally speaking, going in that direction, and it's too late and there's nothing you can do? And do you then tie the lack of casual interest to that style? I know you and I personally do. I don't mean to be condemnatory, because, as a musician, I've had to watch other styles and other ways of playing rock music come in. I don't agree with them, and I have the same laughter. I think, well, that's why you're not doing the business. Like, yeah, that style gets over in New York, but it ain't going to get over in Iowa.
But Billy, that's it in a nutshell. That's it right there. Business. Exactly what you said. Billy, I hear it all the time. Like, I saw Ricochet's comments, after his match with Ospreay, and I love both of those guys, man. I really do. But I read his comments about wrestling can be anything. It's a canvas. It's what you make it. I hear, I'm sorry, Billy, but I hear the word evolve. Bro, all that is fine and well, and Vince Russo is an irrelevant old coot who doesn't know what he's talking about if it's working. But when you see an audience go from 10 million people to 3 million people, it is not working. From a business standpoint, when you look at numbers, less people care about that style than the people that used to care about traditional wrestling. And what's happening in the meanwhile is you're turning the wrestling audience into a niche audience. The numbers back that up. That's all that should really matter.
Well, what I think my guess is very similar to what you see in the entertainment cultures of movies and music is you're going to see, and let's use the term of the day, let's call it a brand split. I think you are going to see wrestling companies come forward, and I would hope TNA would be part of that, that are going to go back to the traditional things that enhance the business and build up the talent in the long term in the way that yields real numbers, and also is adaptable to the culture that's coming down the road with over-the-top networks and the internet. And then I think you're going to have, just like you have indie bands, and you're going to have that sort of style be pervasive with certain hardcore fan bases, which is totally fine. But I don't think it's going to be able to rise out of what you would call a niche culture, because it doesn't speak to the casual fan. And look, there's no everyone has a general understanding. I've been in this big band. If I go and I play all my weird, obscure songs, I got a lot of pissed off fans who don't come back. If I go play only my hit songs, and I've been lucky enough to have a bunch of them, I make more people happy, but I turn off my hardcore fan base who says, why did I come to this concert to hear you play those same songs? So I got to find a balance between those two things if I want to continue to be in the Smashing Pumpkins. If I want to be a weird guy, I'll just go call it something else and go do that in my basement. If I want to be on the biggest stages of the world, I have to find that balance. I had to find that balance in 1995, 2005, 2015. So I think you and I are on the same wavelength in that the business hasn't yet evolved, to use that word, between, let's call it, the generational shift of how the millennials want wrestling to be portrayed, and find that balance against the traditional aspects of the business. And why those people are running the store, the numbers have driven down. Now, I don't take as black and white as approach as you do, that they're totally linked, because I do think we're seeing shifting patterns in the way people consume wrestling. And I would say, and this is a slightly different argument, is the future of wrestling going to be based more on, let's call it, reality, which in some ways has to harken back to the old business. Like, you have to believe in Brock Lesnar to believe what Brock Lesnar is doing. So he has to look like a monster to believe what the monster is doing. Or is the business going to, is it going to be more like Breaking Bad or something, where what you're watching is totally not real, and as long as you're invested in it dramatically, you don't need to believe that the guy who's undersized can beat the guy who's 300 pounds more or something. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does. It does.
I think what I'm trying to say is the fork in the road, and I do think this is a fork in the road moment for many parts of entertainment culture, but particularly professional wrestling. It either has to go more into fantasy or it has to go more into reality. But the place it's in is such an uncomfortable balance that I think it's turning a lot of people off. And I don't think anybody, including, supposedly genius me over here, no one's figured out how to evolve that forward into a way that will bring back the casual fan. Billy, which I know is something that you focus on a lot.
Billy, do you know? Listen, man, Billy, the early days of TNA, when we first started and it was pay-per-view, $9.99 a month, and we were in the asylum. You got to understand, I just came off of the Attitude Era in WCW. I knew that we're talking about 2000, when TNA first started, 2002. 2001, 2000. I knew Attitude Era is over now. We have to evolve the business. We have to go to the next step. Keep in mind, reality television was just starting to take off. Nowhere near where it is now. It was just starting to take off. What we did in those early days, Billy, to me, was the most groundbreaking moment in professional wrestling that unfortunately a lot of people didn't get to see, because TNA was just starting and you had to pay to see it. A lot of people didn't see it. Basically, this is what we did, Billy. I was a key authority figure on the show. Okay? Bro, everybody would be at the building. The show would be starting. I would be sitting at Jeff Jarrett's house. Okay? Jeff Jarrett and myself were the only two that knew when and if Vince Russo was hitting the show. Jeff would literally call me from the building. Okay, Vince, here's where we are in the show. Get in the car and get over here. I would go to the arena. The Harris boys, you know them, they're working with you now, would meet me at the back door. They worked for Jeff. They would let me in the back door, Billy, and I would walk right to that ring. And 90% of the time, there were people in the ring. Billy, They did not know I was coming. They did not know what I was going to say, and they were forced to perform in the moment. And I must say, the only guy that was able to go toe-to-toe with me was Mike Tenay. And it was some of the greatest television I was ever involved in. There was a real sense of reality because all of this wasn't scripted. A lot of it was being ad-libbed, and we were going on, basically emotions. And from a realistic point of view, where would these emotions go? And Billy, I got to tell you, bro, everything I've accomplished, that was my most exciting time in wrestling, period. And the best work I ever did. Now, let me tell you exactly what happened, because it's never rebounded from that. We're doing that style. All of a sudden now, TNA gets to deal with Fox Sport Net. Okay, now they finally got a network. Jeff Jarrett, who's in charge at the time, doesn't want to go in this network with these uncharted territories. He was afraid of the unknown, and I understand that. We did not know where this was going to go. And Jeff was afraid of the unknown, so what did he do? We went back to what he knew, right? And what he knew was professional wrestling. TNA has been the same. And not only TNA, wrestling has been the same ever since.
Well, the only thing you could argue that against what you're saying is that this other style that we're talking about, some people call it the Ring of Honor style, or, whatever, the indie style, or even the Japanese strong style, all that kind of stuff. That was the reaction to that. So we do have to acknowledge that generation coming up, they did have their reaction to it. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
I'm not clear. I mean, yeah, and I really want to be clear.
What I'm saying is you can draw a straight line from Gorgeous George to Vince Russo. You know what I mean? You can draw a straight line through the different eras and how we got there. And then basically once you kind of peaked out, I don't mean you, the times, and lots of things happened, included The Rock going into movies, and all these sorts of things happen. As that trajectory is continued now to where TNA and WWE are in their style, in their sort of approach to professional wrestling on television, and then by extension how you would perform a house show, there has been an underground reaction to that style, and that style is out there. There are a lot of people who really like it, and then it obviously has influenced the WWE through the NXT brand.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to acknowledge deferentially that generationally there was a reaction to the failure of those business models to evolve. Now, the argument, if you were sitting with a lot of old veterans, they will say, well, they haven't come up with anything better. They didn't beat us at our own game. So better to go back to what you know, which is like what you were saying what Jeff did. He went back to what he knew.
Right.
Which, and his father, and the Memphis style is one of the greatest styles ever invented. So you can understand why you would even go back to something that you believe in.
Yeah.
But let me finish, because I think it's important. As somebody who's in the entertainment business as an artist, and now in a management side, I am convinced to my bones that evolution is at the core of successful business. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. I can run a very, very successful Smashing Pumpkins business just playing my old songs. I can make a lot of money, and a lot of people constantly tell me that I'm dumb for not doing more of it. I could be out right now. It's summer. I could be out right now making a bunch of money and getting a bunch of attention. That, to me, is not why I'm in the business. I'm in the business because I want to be at the next breaking point. And as somebody who helped innovate at the highest levels, you understand that feeling of like, I can't believe this is working. This is so cool. And every day's like Christmas because you're making it up as you go along. You don't realize how good it is until it's over. And you and I have both had those moments personally and professionally. And so I think I'm confirming what you're saying in a different way, which is like, if you cannot evolve the business, it's not really success. Success is that new moment. And whether it's the further evolution of that indie style to where it can become mainstream, which I don't think you and I believe it can, or what would be the next step beyond the Attitude Era, which to me hasn't happened. I mean, we are stuck basically in a style that you innovated 15, 20 years ago.
Well, Billy, you know what it is, bro? This is exactly what it is, man. And you're as much of a sports fan as I am. You're as much as and entertainment the same way. Billy, everything has to evolve. That I just told you, bro. That's what I was trying to do in 2002. Everything has to evolve. However, Billy, with evolution, the casual fans and your fan base, you can't change the very foundation of the sport, or in this case, professional wrestling. You and I love baseball, Billy. Billy, we could talk about how baseball has evolved over the years, but the very foundation of the game did not change.
I think sorry to interrupt you, I think that's the critical point to what we're both discussing. And this is, I'm going to go back to, I'm going to repeat myself, and to people listening, please forgive me, but there's a reason. I'm serious when I say this. We had the breaking of kayfabe in 1988-89 when Vince McMahon said, okay, it's not real. Okay, the business went up. Okay, so the argument was, well, the breaking of kayfabe didn't hurt the business. I would argue that it did. We are now paying for the breaking of kayfabe. Now, in the internet era, and you have a very sophisticated audience listening, the idea of keeping kayfabe in 2016 seems laughable. There'd be no way. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm not blaming anybody. It was going to happen one way or the other, and in fact, it probably was happening. I talked to Mike Tenay about when he was doing his own dirt sheet, and he knew kayfabe was BS in 1975. So it was out there. It wasn't like this ironclad thing. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is, if we look at successful models of television, reality being one, although that seems to be dying off a bit now, or we're calling the new kind of binge watching docudrama, the kind of the making of a murder or something. There is an evolution happening in television, and wrestling is behind that evolution. And I'm saying very simply and crudely that from my perspective, either you have to go back into kind of it's almost like kayfabe in the sense of like, we're going to keep kayfabe as long as the program is running, because you have to believe in the television show, or you're not going to watch for the payoff. Or you've got to go so into fantasy like Lucha Underground that it takes on almost like an otherworldly thing. And in that, I would argue with you to this extent. I still think there is an opportunity there for wrestling to evolve, but in order for it to evolve, you might have to break the egg. It might have gone as far as it can go based on its kayfabe route. It's gone as far as it can go. The tide has run itself all the way out. The audience knows that what they're watching is a performance. When it's done really, really well, just like if it's done really well in the movies, we buy into it. But there's something now about the breaking of the fourth wall with the audience, its influence on the product. It's created something that can't be unbroken.
Bro, I swear to God, Billy, this could be an 8-hour conversation, because every time you say something, I want to say something else. Billy, I've said this all along. And Billy, with all due respect, I pitched this to John when I was consulting, and he quite frankly, he never got back to me. I hear what you're saying, Billy. I couldn't agree more. I think God, bro, there's so many things I want to say based on what you're saying. But let me before I say this, let me get back to what I said. In my opinion, wrestling has changed the very foundation of why people watch it. The foundation consists of three things: characters, good storylines, and ring psychology in the ring, where you believed the fight was real. You believed the fight was real. The WWE as a model has totally gotten away from those three things. No more character development, no more character vignettes. They all come out looking like wrestlers. The costuming, all that stuff is gone. So nobody's unique. Everybody's the same. The storylines are horrible. And now with exhibitions, the psychology in the match. Bro, baseball comes along. All of a sudden, we're going to institute instant replay. That's great. That didn't change the foundation of baseball. That didn't change the game. That evolved the game. Big difference. But getting back on what we were just talking about, I pitched this to John because I felt this. It needed to go in this direction. I was trying to go this direction in WCW. Bro, the backbone of wrestling, because of everything you just said, Billy, kayfabe, the fourth wall being broken. Bro, everybody knows, even casual fans, we know what the wrestling business is. But a lot of people have not seen that side, or they don't understand that side, because in our weird minds, like you said, we're still trying to kayfabe people when kayfabe is laughable in 2016. But that's what the wrestling business is still trying to do. What the backbone should be is the business of the business. My pitch to Gaborik was, I was consulting at a time when Spike TV did not know whether they were going to renew the TNA contract or not. It was up in the air. I went to John. I said, John, this is all over the internet. Everybody knows about this. This is your story. How are the wrestlers reacting to this? How is the network reacting? How is Dixie Carter reacting? How does the business of the business come into play? That was the reality of the situation. And I was totally ignored because, in 2016, we're still trying to kayfabe people that you can't kayfabe. And Billy, let's be honest, me and you. Let's just be honest. This is what it comes down to. When you created the Smashing Pumpkins and you had a vision and you had an idea, guess what, Billy? It was either going to do one of two things. It was either going to make you a mega superstar, or it was going to be a fart in church. That's it. But here's the deal, Billy. You had the balls to take that chance because you had the confidence and you believed in yourself and you believed in your talent. So you had that weighing on your side, but you had the balls. You know what? This is my kind of music. I think this music is going to sell. I'm putting it out there. I have confidence. Nobody in wrestling has the balls to do that anymore. They're all doing what's safe and what's comfortable. And month by month, year by year, the audience wanes off more and more and more because as television is getting more sophisticated, it's leaving wrestling in the dust, and it makes wrestling look more and more childish. But nobody has the balls to say, you know what? And Vince did during the Attitude Era. It was a completely different style. Nobody has the balls to say, you know what? Let's put on the brakes. This obviously is not working. We're losing viewers in droves. We need to take our balls in our hand and try something different. Nobody's willing to do that.
Well, I disagree with you on that, in that I do believe I'm trying to do that, but I'm only one person, and
I'm not saying you. I'm talking about the people running the company.
What I'm trying to say is that the good news is, adversity is the mother of invention. And I do believe that the adversity that TNA's been through has forced different perspectives forward, including mine. And I've gotten traction on things that I wouldn't have gotten traction on before. So, and I think, as you know, working in a company, I mean, you want everybody to succeed. I'm not trying to beat anybody else. When it's my idea, I want people to push behind me. And when it's their idea, I want to push behind them. So I think collectively we have moved forward because we have had to really step back and wonder what it is that we're doing that's working and not working. And you and I can discuss that in detail. But the point is, I do feel that within the company, there is a consciousness that we need to evolve forward. And I've probably been the biggest proponent on that from the moment I walked through the door. Now, when I said it the first day I came in, nobody knew me as well other than, hey, how you doing? Now that I've been there for a while, now that I've been involved in these things, I think I have more credibility to move those things forward. And so I feel good about that, even though it doesn't necessarily always move as fast as I want to. But then again, I'm not in charge of making every decision to decide whether or not it can move forward, because at the end of the day, it's not my ass on the line of whether or not that idea is going to work. So I have to respect that, because it might have been, you might have been the boss in a different era, and I'm coming to you and you're thinking, well, it's my ass too. So those things need to balance out in reality.
Billy, I understand you completely, and I did not mean that towards you, bro. I said the first day when
I didn't take any offense at all.
Billy, is there anything you want to plug? I mean, any more touring? I mean, anything?
No, I'm good. Just, for fans who have, not been watching the show, I think there's been a real nice build up to Slammiversary. Look, check out the Slammiversary card. Sometimes we run into some issues because we obviously have to pre-tape and spoilers and something like that. Well, the great thing is Slammiversary will be live. And I'm looking forward to that card. I think it's a very strong card. I think we've done a good job building up to those matches. And, that's not always the easiest thing to do, to get all the planes to line up on the runway. Feel very, very good about that. So I'd say to people who are casual, or maybe people who have been turned off by the product, I'd certainly give the pay-per-view a chance. I think that's going to be a very, very strong card.
Yeah. Billy, can I give you one more just Vince Russo's wisdom based on that? Okay. Sure. I had Marty Bell on the show, and she said something very interesting, because we put TNA over. I'm going to put TNA over. Slammiversary, Pop TV, Tuesdays at 9:00. Watch it. But Marty said something very interesting. She gave her pitch, and she basically said, listen, don't watch the show for 15 minutes. Don't watch it for a half hour. Watch it for 4 weeks. Give it a chance. Watch it for 4 weeks. And I'm sitting back, and while Marty's saying this, I'm saying to myself, girl, bless your heart, but you have to understand, in today's television environment, nobody is going to give this show a chance for 4 weeks and 8 hours unless you give them a reason. So, Billy, I mean, what I have to say to you is, it just goes back to this, and you said it in the interview. Every freaking show needs to grab the viewer off the top, out of the chute. That needs to be strung along methodically to keep them there, keep them there, keep them there, keep it there, and pay it off in a very satisfying way. But going to Marty's point, you have to earn that opportunity for them to watch it for 4 weeks. They're just not going to turn in for 4 weeks.
Well, that's why I don't disagree with you, and that's why I would say, if I was going to recommend anything, I think give this Slammiversary event a shot. It's a very strong card, and even if Mike Bennett's work on the indies, I mean, I've seen his growth in the past few months. I mean, he's got an upside that's he's not even close to his upside yet. Yeah. Maria's doing incredible work. Lashley's probably doing the best work of his life. Drew Galloway doing the best work of his life. EC3 is obviously, a legit superstar no matter where he works. I mean, I'm sorry, but go back and look at some of those pay-per-views from the 80s and the 90s. You'll find the cards were not any more loaded than what we have right now on that. So I think give it a shot. And I've said this before in other interviews. If you don't like the booking, yell at people like me, yell at Matt, yell at Dave, yell at John. If you don't like the direction of the company, I think those are all reasonable arguments to have. But always remember, at least if you're a fan, remember that at the end of the day, you're missing out at times on the best work. Even if you don't like the angles, you might be missing out on the best work of particular talent in their prime. I mean, Drew Galloway is in his absolute prime. Bobby Lashley is in his absolute prime. And I'm sorry, if I'm a wrestling fan, I want to see those people work, even if I don't always agree with the direction of the product. That, to me, differentiates wrestling fans and people who I quantify as marks, who get caught up in the inner politic.
Yeah.
Who pretend that NXT is an indie company when it's still WWE. Or that Ring of Honor isn't, yes, they're an indie company, but they also happen to be owned by a very, very wealthy television syndicated network. They have, right now, Ring of Honor has more resources than we do. So, I'm saying people play games with words and ideas, but at the end of the day, TNA is still an independent company. It is 100% owned by Dixie.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, if you love wrestling, you want those wrestlers and you want those things to succeed. And the argument around wrestling is always a fun one to have. So my argument is to a casual fan is, if you didn't watch the program for 6 months and you turn in Slammiversary, does that look like a company that's moving in the right direction? If the answer is yes, keep watching. If it's no, well then wait 6 more months and come back when you think it's worth giving it another chance. That would be the only thing I'd say, because that's what I think credibility is important. That's what I always loved about JR as an announcer. He always kept his credibility with the fans.
Yeah.
You know, and as somebody who doesn't have to pretend, you know what I mean? That's my credibility, is I have no problem telling the truth.
Tune into Impact Wrestling Pop TV Tuesday nights at 9 o'clock. Like Billy said, watch Slammiversary. There's a lot that was put into this. Give it a shot. See where they are. You like it, keep rolling with it. Because let me just point this out to you. I mean, and you want to talk about simple things. I mean, the first day Billy Corgan was hired, people said, Vince, what do you think? I said, I'm absolutely ecstatic. If they don't let Billy do what Billy wants to do with his creative mind and his creative genius and his understanding of wrestling business, then it's a total waste of everybody's time. I mean, that's basically what I said. It doesn't matter who you have in that spot. But Billy, we're talking about basics here. We're just talking about basic fundamentals here. Bro, I'll give you a couple of instances yesterday. Literally, simple. This is exactly what we're talking about. Bro, you work with Bobby Lashley, right?
Oh, yes, sir, yeah.
Okay, you see the size of that man.
He walks by, and I mean, every time he walks by, you think, oh, Jesus, wow.
Okay. Would Bobby Lashley ever run away from anybody? Unless they had a gun.
Well, he shouldn't be.
Okay, well, he's running away from people on your show last night because it's wrestling. Bro, if EC3 asked the Miracle, you're going to clean the bathrooms tonight, and you want to protect that character, the Miracle, what would the Miracle say? What would anybody in that spot say? They'd say, go F yourself, bro. I'm not a freaking janitor. I'm not a professional wrestler. Freaking fire me. That's what anybody would say in that circumstance. Anybody, bro. Anyone. But here he is with the mop in the stalls cleaning. That's simplistic stuff, Billy. And unfortunately, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I say one of the biggest fundamentals in wrestling is when you watch a wrestling show, wrestlers act like wrestlers. Everyday normal human beings do not act like wrestlers.
But again,
that's a disconnect.
Right. I would take you back to the same point I was making, is do we want more fantasy or do we want more reality? Your point in those two instances with Bobby and Mike Bennett would be to lean it back towards reality, right? So I'm not disagreeing or agreeing. What I'm saying is I look at it as like we've either got to make it more real or we've got to make it more fantasy. But the place that we're in is ultimately not going to be good for business long term. Yeah. That would be my argument.
Well, Bill, I don't know if I'd say reality or fantasy. The word I would use is believability. You have to make it believable.
I don't know, because I'm sorry, but I watch plenty of shows. I'm not a big TV viewer per se, but I've watched plenty of shows that I don't buy the characters. I'm just interested.
Okay. All right.
I mean, my dad used to deal drugs, for people who don't know, right? You know, I grew up around Hell's Angels type guys, and I've watched, like my friend Marilyn Manson was on Sons of Anarchy, stuff like that. I've watched some of those episodes. I mean, those guys are not the people that I knew. They are symbolic representations, far better looking and far probably less smelly than the people that I knew that were, dealing drugs out of trunks. Okay. So I'm saying movies and television do a good way of symbolically representing something that is inherently not real. I read an interesting thing. Frank Capra, the great director of It's a Wonderful Life and many other, Jimmy Stewart movies and stuff like that. He said he found when he shot film, in order to approximate reality on the screen, he had to shoot things a third faster than they are in real life. So when a person walked to the door, they had to walk to the door 33% faster, because if they didn't, it felt too slow, even though that was the real pace in reality, because people are watching from a different perspective. Yeah. And I think you understand that intuitively, that you have to represent reality in a particular way. So I go with your word believability or something like that. So there are fantasy situations. I'm not talking about people, dematerializing type fantasy. I'm talking about you can create a character that we know isn't real, but we enjoy the character to the extent that we want to go on the journey with that character. And there have been many characters in the history of wrestling, Mad Dog Vachon. I mean, nobody really believed he was truly, crazy and ate the turnbuckle and all that stuff, but people got behind the character and they went with it. My point is those things are still achievable, but I think my personal perspective is you almost have to make an internal decision. Do you want it to be more believable, or do you want it to be more fantastical?
Yeah,
whatever direction you go in, the audience has to want to take that journey with you. If they don't, it doesn't matter what you do.
Right. Okay, I got you.
For example, real quick, when you have a baseball team that's not winning, they fire the coach and they bring in a new coach. What does the new coach say? We're going to do this. We're going to do that. The team's going to suck the next year. You have to believe that the team's moving forward to get behind the changes that they're making. So you look at the positive and the negatives within the balance of progress.
Okay.
And that's how I tend to look at the business that I'm in is, are we making progress with what we have to work with? Inherently, I've been saying this for over a year, I think professional wrestling as a business model is a flawed and broken model that has not evolved with the times. And every time I say that, people laugh at me and criticize me. But like, to go back to your thing, the numbers belie that. And if anybody feels like looking it up, I say the same things about the music business. Okay, so I got skin in this game when I talk about the entertainment. The music business is so far behind the tech companies in terms of how they're using talent and how they're selling phones, and we are in the dark ages in the music business against the tech world. So when I'm critical of my own home business too. So I do believe that foundationally we need to make sort of different decisions within the wrestling business to drive towards a kind of a new future, to get people behind a new perspective. I think it's very obvious that wrestling as a business model is broken.
Yeah. And
it needs to evolve. The question is who makes those decisions and all that type of stuff.
Well, Billy, I'm just going to say this, and like, you don't even have to comment on it. Okay. I'm saying, based on my experience, a huge problem with that statement you just made, which I agree 100% with, is, in my experience, TNA is run by Dixie Carter, who is afraid to make little decisions, let alone major decisions. Now, Billy, I'm going to tell you this. There were things last night that head and tails above Raw. You are trying to still make the wrestling look real and look like a fight. It's not an exhibition. I love the fact that there were no matches that went through a commercial break. I used to beg those guys, please make every match self-contained in a segment. Don't go through freaking commercial. The people are not going to come back. You did that last night. I still believe, you need sexuality. You have beautiful women on the show. The demo is still going to be 18 to 34, bro. Guys want to see beautiful women.
Could I jump in, though?
Yes.
The data shows that the wrestling audience as a whole is starting to skew older.
Yeah, 18 to 49 even, I'm here. But they're still guys, bro. They're still guys.
No, I get that, but what I'm trying to say is that 18 to 34 number used to hold as sort of a sacrosanct number, and it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
We're now dealing with an aging fan base, very similar to the aging fan base that we have in rock and roll.
Yeah. I agree with that. Okay.
And maybe the two are tied more than I would like to admit,
But Billy, looking at the product as a whole, okay, and like I said, I would choose it over to WWE. There are a lot of things, I think you're doing better. But looking at it as a whole, I don't, from what I'm seeing as a fan sitting in my chair, I don't see any changes in wrestling philosophy or presentation whatsoever. It's still a wrestling show. And listen, I understand it's not going to happen overnight, but I also look at it like, when Bobby Lashley is still running away from people, something that is so freaking rudimentary, you are a far way off of making this product. I'm supposed to suspend my disbelief. I'm not going to believe a guy like Lashley is running away from anybody. That is so simplistic. I want to tell you what I think the root of the problem is. Okay, this is what I see when I watched that show last night, and I am being as raw and as honest as possible. And what really concerns me is I don't see this changing. I don't know how this changes. I don't know. One thing I want to throw out there, Billy, and again, I brought this up when I was consulting too. Billy, if somebody is watching this show for the first time, there are so many guys that look alike. It's not even funny. And like I said, the lack of character, you know, which is costuming, which all comes down to dollars and cents. And we know TNA probably doesn't have the money. I understand that.
No, let me jump in there because
Go ahead.
I think that's just vision and effort. You know, for example, and it's been talked about, so I'm not trying to put myself over here. You know, I was sort of given the Decay gimmick. You know, and part of that was how you were going to put Abyss in it, turning crazy Steve, and then we brought in Rosemary from the Indies to build this new faction, which on the surface from the get-go, under normal wrestling rules, was a mid-card gimmick. Okay, I was given it, and they said, do whatever you want with it. Okay, first thing I did, because I thought of the oxygen part of it all, was everybody, it's got to be like Batman and Superman, and like they all have to be equal. And so that was my first thing, and I insisted, and there was some issues there internally with trying to get it to balance. And once we did it, then it clicked, and it clicked with the audience immediately. I had a vision for it, and thankfully the talent has done a tremendous job following in behind that vision, and we work so fantastically. I'm so proud of, and it was really cool because when they won the belts, you know, it's like, you know, I was able to take something that wasn't supposed to go anywhere, and we got it somewhere. Yeah. So let me finish. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not trying to make it about me. What I'm trying to say is there's a situation where having a vision, working with the talent, getting them on board, understanding the characters, being consistent in how the characters are applied, and even arguing with them when they come back to the curtain and say, that's not what we talked about, because you have to be consistent for the television viewer. We were able to get that thing over, and now it's an asset to the show. So I believe that I can do that with anything I put my hands on, because it just requires that extra effort to get it there. Now that's philosophical, that's effort, that's having relationships with the talent, that's even giving a you know what. But my point is I think all those things are always doable. They're always right in front of you.
Billy, here's my point, and this is the crux of the problem, and you led me right into it. Here's the problem, okay? With all due respect, you're not running the company. You don't have the final say so, and there's not only one person ahead of you. There are two people ahead of you, and Billy, let's face it, even last night, you know, you weren't at the show because, you know, I know you're not touring now, but you were touring during that time. So with all due respect, I hear you. As an artist, you made that act different. And that is why the act stood out, and that is why the act got over. Unfortunately, Billy Corgan is not in charge, which, in my opinion, here is the problem. And this is a problem I don't see changing. This is why I'm concerned. Like I said, bro, when I turn on Impact, and I hadn't watched it for a while, the first thing I see is everybody looks the same. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of, if I'm a first-time viewer, Bram looks like Galloway. Galloway looks like Storm. There's about 3 or 4 people with long hair and beards. Okay, like I would not be able to tell them apart. Then I saw the guy, please, bro, I'm sorry about the names, but who's the King of the Mountain champion?
Eli Drake.
Eli Drake. I see Eli Drake, and then I see a sit-down interview with Pepper, and Eli Drake and Pepper look like the same guy. So basically what I'm seeing is, I don't know if it's lack of funds or whatnot. A lot of these guys not only just look like wrestlers, they look the same. Very few of them are standing out.
Well, that's good perspective. I don't necessarily see it that way, but I'd have to think about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not disagreeing. I'd have to think about it. maybe that's a situation because I'm close to it. I see things that maybe the average viewer doesn't, and I need to look like it from an average viewer point of view. Like if I'm turning on for the first time, what separates these people? And I think that's good insight.
Yeah. Here's number 2, Billy, and this is all my opinion. And bro, let me tell you something. When I was doing this every single week, like I know, guys like you and Lagana and Conway are, and you're in that grind, and it's the next show, and it's the next show, and it's the next show. You don't have the
sometimes 2 shows,
sometimes 5 shows. Okay, you don't have the privilege of doing what I'm doing. That's why I offered a consulting for them. But that's another story. Okay, with what I just said, Billy, in my opinion, a lot of these guys are coming across as indie guys. A lot of these guys don't look like stars. And a lot of these guys, I'm not talking about the work now. I don't judge wrestling. I don't judge people's in-ring work because I'm not a wrestler. That I leave that to Al Snow. I leave that to Pat Kenny. I'm talking about, presentation and characters and stars. That's what I'm talking about. I see vanilla-looking guys. A lot of them look alike. The mic skills, the in-ring presence, green. A lot of they look like indie guys. A lot of these guys look like they should be on an indie show. Let's face it, Billy, for financial reasons. A lot of these guys have now found themselves on a television show every Tuesday night on Pop TV, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. You see that plugged away? Just got that in there. But the fact of the matter is, still green, still look like.
Well, I'm not agreeing to the extent that I don't have any interest in bearing our own talent, because I'm on the developmental side. So my point is when I see that, my question is, does that person have the ability to get where they can go? And then ultimately is the support around them. And this falls on me and Pat and Shane and Al and Abyss to take that talent and push them forward. And I think at the end of the day, I've watched plenty of internet clips of my favorite stars of yesteryear when they were green and they weren't yet the superstar that they became. So I guess I just take a different perspective. Yes, there are situations where guys are put in positions that maybe they haven't earned yet because of business and because of finances. But at the end of the day, I was in that position once in my own musical life. I kind of had to push my way through. So I'm not trying to be a homer. What I'm trying to say is ultimately, can you take what you see? Can you make that observation? And then can you evolve the talent forward so that they can contribute to the program?
Billy, I know exactly what you're saying. And that was my next point. I don't put any of that onus on the talent at all. They were hired. They were put in that spot. If they're green and shouldn't be there yet, that's not on them. I would understand completely. TNA needs to do that for financial reasons. I get that. I understand that. I'm not jobbing any of those guys out. I'm not sitting here saying not one of those guys don't deserve to be on the show. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it comes across that, and especially now if you're going to be going head-to-head with WWE and SmackDown, it's going to be more glaring. What comes across is they look like they're not ready. They need to be, developed. They need to be given characters. They need to be taught how to cut promos.
I would point back to the same thing, and I can't speak to because we're talking in generalities.
Right.
My point of view is if somebody's in front of me, and it's my responsibility to help not only have them contribute to the show, but get them to be the best that they can be. I think that falls on the agents and the office and stuff like that.
Well, that's my point, Billy. And I'm just
I'm agreeing with that. Yeah. And what I'm trying to say is that I think part of that is just the realities of the business. But the other part I think is there's the philosophical quandary of where are we going as a business? I'm not even talking about TNA. I'm talking about the wrestling world in general, because you do deal with some young talent who are green, and you go to them and say, look, you need to do this and this, and they don't believe in it because philosophically and generationally, they don't see that as being their future. You know what I mean? And so then you get into a different thing. Now, I'm not in a position to hire and fire. You know what I mean? But there have been situations where if I was the one in the position to hire and fire, I would say, look, if you don't want to follow my version of this, you know, we're going to have to go other ways, because I want people that believe in the system that I would want to put in. You know, like with the Cubs, it's a particular kind of way. Not everybody would want to play for Joel Madden. You know what I mean? Some guys need a hard ass yelling at them every day to be their best.
But Billy, here's my thing. Listen, I just want to say this. The system, the opinion of Vince Russo, the system is not there because the main two cogs in the system are not qualified within the within the wrestling business to be in the positions they are. And let me just say this, Billy, because I have to say this because it's what I see. And in my opinion, it's hurting TNA. Okay. And I'm going to say, and I don't want you to, I'm not saying this to get you in any trouble, but really people, in my opinion, people need to smarten up. Not the two people.
But I have to jump in this way. People make and have made the same argument about me that I have no business being in the wrestling business.
Okay, well, let me say this.
But let me just finish, because I think, you know, we want to have an honest interview here. You know, we're not here to play games or, you know, dance around things. You know, we're being very transparent in many ways about the way this particular company works. And you know, you're not trying to set me up and to step me into a mud hole. But having worked in the company and worked intimately with people, everyone has a different philosophical reason for why they're doing what they're doing. So even if I don't agree on every level with why they're doing what they're doing, they do believe in what they're doing. And so when you talk about somebody not being qualified, I mean, I hear the same arguments about me. I think at the end of the day, it's what system do you have in place? What objective do you want to reach with that system? And do you have the talent to get you there? So philosophically, I think if you're critiquing the systemic philosophy of the business vis-a-vis the Dixie's decision in terms of how the company, the direction of the company, and then by extension, John is the GM of the company. Okay, that's a discussion I think worth having, because at the end of the day, you can have that discussion about any system, about whether it could be better run. But I don't think that the people in the system are unqualified. I think they just have a different vision of how they want it run. Now, if you don't think it's effective, well, then that's part of the discussion about philosophy. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does, Billy. But
what I'm trying to say is, I don't see the people that I work with as being unqualified.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not defending them just to defend them. I do think they're qualified. I think philosophically they just have a different version of it.
Well, Billy, here's where you and I are going to disagree, because quite frankly, when John came over, the two most important positions in any company, these were the Vince Russo and the Jim Ross positions during the Attitude Era. The top two positions of any wrestling company, he was put in charge of, and he had no experience in either one. Number two, from a personal standpoint, I know that I am no longer working at TNA, and even though I offered my services for free, I am no longer working there because, you know, I'm just going to say it. John Gaborik does not want somebody there creatively that knows more than him. It's that I knew that from the first day. Let me just finish my thought, Billy. I knew that from the first day I worked there. And here's the thing, Billy. John Gaborik comes in literally within the matter of months. He clears out Jeff Jarrett, Bruce Pritchard, Vince Russo, and Eric Bischoff. Bro, you're talking about combined 100 years of experience in the wrestling business that worked under Vince McMahon, worked under Vern Gagne, worked under the pioneers, geniuses in the wrestling business. You wipe them out in one full swoop so you could now have total control of this baby and not be questioned. And bro, in my humble opinion, that is now catching up with you, because for me to learn my trade and to do what I did, I had to be connected to Vince McMahon's hip for 5 years. I didn't become the head writer of Raw overnight. Vince brought me, I mean, bit by bit by bit, the stuff I did until I was put in that spot. You can't erase that kind of experience.
I got you, but I just want to sort of take it in a slightly different direction. Number one, I go back to what I was saying. I think John's philosophy is a different philosophy than all those people. Now, you're the only person of those people that I know personally. But I don't see John as lacking a philosophy. Like I said, if a fan or you as an insider, outsider type person wants to argue that you don't agree with the philosophy, then that's totally fine. There are people that are hired as GMs and head coaches all the time that their philosophy doesn't work. Like I was recently reading about the guy who was running the 76ers basketball team. And he basically tanked about 4 seasons to get a lot of draft picks, and he's been run out of town now. I mean, I don't have intimate knowledge, but the point I'm saying is not everybody wins at what they're winning. And then secondarily, and I don't mean this in any disrespectful way, but if the people that you're referring to, including yourself, okay, and again, nobody's figured this thing out. If all that experience meant something, then everybody would still be drawing those numbers. So there is a bigger crisis in the business, which is kind of where I'm running some cover for John as my boss, and as somebody is helping form the philosophical and systemic decisions of the company. Is I think we all recognize the business needs to change, but nobody has a proprietary. They don't have the proprietary answer in their hands, and that includes you. That includes me. Nobody knows where this business is going. Everyone thinks they know where it's going, but no one's proven yet where it's going. And until they do, that's where it gets sort of, it's like it's sitting around the hay bale.
But Billy, listen, God, bro, you're making me ask the tough questions, but I have to. Billy, when
you can ask anything, Vince,
Billy, when those people were there, with all due respect, when those people were there, we had TNA over 2 million people. And bro, you know what? I did not love Eric. Eric did not love me. You throw Bruce Pritchard into that mix. 2 million people were watching SmackDown. We're watching Impact, which is about how many people watch SmackDown now. Billy, with all due respect, the 2 million has gone down to about 300 to 350,000. So when you're talking to me about John Gaborik's vision, when I'm the owner of the company and I'm saying, wait a minute, we used to draw 2 million people on Spike TV. Now we're drawing 350,000 people on Pop TV. There's something wrong with somebody's vision. Bro, it's like you said, let's go back to baseball. Bro, if a manager is hired and the manager goes 60 and 102, guess what? Manager's out, new manager comes in. So, Billy, it's like, again, at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's numbers. It all comes down to numbers.
But everybody's numbers are down. Look, I am no sycophant for the company I work for. You know what I mean? I'm basically kind of a free agent. You know what I mean? Which is why I can have this interview with you if you have heat with the office and all that kind of stuff. I can do whatever I want to do. I'm an independent person. And I'm here to even have credibility within the community that listens to you. I want a straight talk. Business across the board is down for everybody. No one has figured this out. So I'm not trying to say that our philosophy is better than the next guy's philosophy. I'm saying is everybody's trying to figure it out, including me, within the halls of any particular company, but nobody's cracked that egg yet, because for whatever reason the business needs to evolve forward, and that you and I agree with. But no one's figured out what that formula is for 2017 and the future. If anybody had, you and I wouldn't be having this discussion, and we'd be out of business. So we're obviously hanging on, and in some cases going back up for some reason, which has to do with having to make critical financial decisions, critical personnel decisions, how we write our shows, the way we film our shows, much of which is publicly documented. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, it does, Billy. But I would have to say, bro, and we'll get off on another topic. I would have to say, when a company like TNA hits 2 million viewers with the resources we had at the time.
But the company was going broke. But the company went broke off of that. So how does that's like the Yankees? It's like, so if they don't win the World Series, then they're in the shitter for a while. That's what I'm trying to say is it wasn't a good business philosophy long term. Look, okay. I've dealt with a lot of short term Cub teams that won the 1 year and then sucked the next 4 or 5. Okay. Whatever happened during those eras, and I don't mean it disrespectfully because I wasn't there. You were, okay? But whatever happened didn't sustain. It wasn't a sustained long-term thing. So all I'm trying to say from the inside out to people who are fans or people who were fans and don't watch anymore is at least there's an attempt to rebuild for something that can endure and last into the future. It doesn't mean it's perfect. It means it's being built to last. That's my personal perspective from the inside out. So I don't mean any disrespect by saying, trust me, I would love for us to wake up to today and realize we just drew 2 million people. That would be amazing. Okay. I'm not poo-pooing those things. What I'm trying to say is the financial decisions, the business decisions drove that company basically into the ground.
But Billy, come on, hiring Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff drove the company into the ground. I mean, if we're going to be honest here, that's where the bulk of the money was spent, and that decision, came from the top. So the fact that we would
I'm not disagreeing with you. What I'm saying is we can place responsibility wherever we want.
Right.
I have my own perspective. You have your own perspective. We agree on some points. We disagree on others. But what I'm trying to say to you is what's happened. And we can argue about it. And whether or not this company will last, endure, somebody will buy us out or whatever, all this stuff that's flying around in the air. At the end of the day, all I can tell you from the inside is somebody who's actually in the meetings, booking the shows, dealing with what's going on, including some of the financial stuff, as somebody who's actually on the front line of it. At least I have the philosophy and my personal philosophy and the people I work with, at least this is what I sense is we're trying to build a company that can move forward. That's all. If you don't like the way we're moving forward, that's fine. But what I would say is if everyone's so in love with everybody else's product, there'd be nothing to talk about in regards to us. We're at least trying to be competitive in a different way to provide a different type of programming based on the resources that we have. Trust me, we would love to have $1 gazillion to spend and hire every free agent and run every angle and da-da-da. Okay. It just doesn't work that way. Just like a small market baseball team, you have to figure out small ball, how to win, money ball, Billy Bean.
Oh, okay.
So my philosophy is more of like a Billy Bean philosophy or even like a Paul Heyman. You can build with what you have if you're smart and you're cool about it and you're thinking forward. That's all I'm trying to say. Right. It's not a defense as much as it is a promotion of we're trying to happen. And that couldn't be happening if I didn't have the support of John Gaburick and Dixie Carter.
Okay, I hear.
I would say that if I didn't feel that was happening. You understand?
Okay, Billy, I have to ask you this on the outside looking in. Again, this lacked, in my opinion, this was a problem when I was there. When Vince Russo was working there, this was a problem from day one.
When you say this was a problem, you're saying what was a problem?
Accountability.
Okay.
Nobody was ever held accountable. And Billy, listen, let's just call a spade a spade. Okay. Personally, I don't think Dave Lagana is talented based on my experience of working him. That is my opinion. That is the opinion of Vince Russo. Matt Conway obviously is the guy that I groomed and was under my wing for a very long time. I got to tell you something, Billy. When Vince McMahon put me in the position of head writer as Raw, when I accepted that job, I accepted the fact that if the ratings did not go up and the ratings went down, I was going to be replaced. I understood that completely. I was brought in to get more viewers as a writer. That was my job. If I did not do that job, I was going to be replaced. I knew that came with the job. I don't know of any television series. I don't know of any sports team where if a TV show is drawing 10 million people And now all of a sudden the same TV show is drawing 1 million people, or a baseball team won 100 games and now the baseball team won 30 games. I've never seen an instance where writers and managers like haven't been replaced. Like I just, I don't understand that. Like wait, let me just finish. Whether it's their fault or not, when you go from 2 million people to 300,000 people, at some point in time, the writers have to be looked at, whether it's their fault or not. Baseball managers get fired every day, and it's not their fault.
Well, let's play fantasy baseball for a second, because I do want to understand what you're saying. Okay, so based on what you know, and you know more than most, would you fire the writers? Would you fire what would you do? What would be the decision that you would make?
Honestly, bro, outside of you, I would get rid of everybody else involved in creative. And I worked with these individuals. And Bill, you have to understand, I'm talking about numbers. I'm talking about results, something we can see, feel, and smell. That's what I'm talking. Not that I don't like this guy or I don't like that guy. I'm talking about the numbers at the end of the day. What are we looking at? That's what I'm talking about.
See, my argument is slightly differently, because I would not fire those guys, and I like working with those guys. I think I would argue more for a philosophical brand reset, or pointing in a different direction. Now, TNA's gone through brand resets before. My brand reset would be like no brand reset that's ever been done in TNA. That's been my internal argument, and I have no problem making it externally, because it is what it is. I don't think there's. I think we're plenty talent rich. I think it's just the approach we're taking based on the system that we're running. And that's nothing that I haven't said. And it's not to bury anybody. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. So,
Billy, why aren't they changing that then? I mean, just I hear you. I believe you, bro. I know you know. Why can't Billy Corgan change that?
That's a good question. I think there are reasons. Some I could talk about and some I can't talk about, because it involves obviously what's going on with the business part, and that would put everybody in a bad position. I think here's what I would say. I'm going to try to give as an honest answer as I can without sort of, revealing inside business stuff. I think, and I've seen it in my own musical life at times. Sometimes the thing that seems obvious is the safest thing. But it's not what the fans want. The fans want a sense of danger. The fans want adventure. The fans want to be taken on a new journey. I know deep down that there'd be a lot of wrestling fans who'd be very happy if TNA started kicking real ass again. Mm-hmm. And I watched during some of those years where it was kicking real ass. And there were times where it wasn't about big names from the past. It was about a homegrown roster. It was about the coming of age of an AJ Styles and stuff like that. I was watching like a lot of other people. And it's cool to see, that AJ is able to, for example, compete on the biggest stage, because that was always sort of the knock against some of the TNA guys. Well, but can they? Okay, well, there you go. They just put him in a new angle with Cena. So good on AJ. So I think when you're dealing with a culture that sort of has a little bit of a shell shock effect, it isn't what it used to be. It never became what it could have been. It's hard to get everyone to pump the brakes and say, okay, what can we do that will actually get us to the promised land? Sometimes kind of doing the same thing, or the status quo, or this is who we are and this is the way we approach things. I personally, in my own business of the Pumpkins music, I don't believe that gets you across the finish line. I believe you got to take chances. And, to the victor go the spoils. You have to roll the dice. The one thing I would say in the positive, where I like where we're at right now, is we're in a position where we can roll the dice. And we have rolled the dice recently on some certain things, and it is starting to pay off, and we have seen the ratings go back up. So at least in that way, what I'm saying has some credibility. Yeah. Now, is it where everybody wants to be? No, but it is what it is.
Okay. I hear you, Billy. Billy, here's the last thing I want to say. This is Business 101. Business 101. This is my biggest concern. Now, Billy, when I talk about we were achieving 2 million viewers at one time, and I say this all the time, bro, I don't take credit for that. What we had at that time was, like you said, bro, we had the AJ Styles, we had homegrown talent, America's Most Wanted, people like that, Beer Money, all those guys. But at that point, bro, the main event mafia was Kevin Nash, Booker T, Scott Steiner, Sting, and Kurt Angle. Okay. And we were drawing 2 million people. Okay. Here's my biggest concern, Billy. Bro, as cliche-ish as it is, you have to spend money to make money. That goes for Vince Russo here on Podcast One, Billy Corgan with the Smashing Pumpkins, WWE, TNA Wrestling. It's business 101. You have to spend money to make money. If you don't have the money to spend, how are you ever going to make money?
I'm going to argue with you right here, because when I started my band, we didn't have a pot to piss in. So how do we go from absolutely nothing?
But Billy, this is 12 years in now. This isn't an upstart business. TNA has been in business for 12 years.
If 14
for whatever, but I mean, if money is not pumped into this at this point, I don't know what possibly is going to turn it around.
My argument, I honestly, laugh if you want, I don't think money is going to save TNA. I think it will be a creative and visionary change in how we run our product. That's my argument. That's the hill I'll die on. I built a musical career, an international career, which is going on 30 years now, based on innovation and creativity. I'm not the best looking guy. A lot of people don't like my singing voice. You know, I obviously have talent, but I did it by being creative, by being different, by looking different, by feeling different, by creating a brand, a musical brand, which is unlike any other. You know, we modeled ourselves after the Beatles and Led Zeppelin. People say, how does that work? Because they were bands that could play folk rock, they could play heavy metal, they could play, you know, pretty songs. We modeled ourselves off of that. So now every year we get new fans because they find our songs, because some kid likes goth music, some kid likes pretty music, whatever. I don't mean to ramble on about me. What I'm trying to say is I do believe the future of TNA is based in creativity. It's not based in resources. That's not to say we don't need resources. Of course we do. But I don't think it's a big money spend. We'll never be the New York Yankees, at least not in the next 10 years. Okay. So we're going to have to win, you know, David and Goliath. We're going to have to win by being smarter, faster, quicker, and cooler. That's it. That's what I believe in. That's the hill I'll die on.
Well, Billy, listen, let me just end it by saying this, because I've said it all along. It starts at the top and it ends at the top, and we can sit here and go on and on and on and on and on.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Because I think it's pertinent. Do you believe the company run by Dixie Carter can succeed?
Absolutely not.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to say. And the reason I'm asking that question, not to put you on the spot, although you don't mind, is at the end of the day, if you believe that, then it doesn't matter what I say, because everything I say basically comes back in under the other umbrella. And I'm not arguing the point,
right?
But I'm telling you that I believe the company can succeed with her as CEO. I've seen enough internally, my relationship with her, the things I've been allowed to do, the things I'm being allowed to do, create an opportunity. And like any opportunity, it's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be investing my time, energy, and effort. I wouldn't be going down to Orlando, away from my new kid, you know, away from my lucrative music career and da-da-da. I wouldn't be doing all these things if I didn't believe it couldn't happen with her at the helm. Now, that doesn't mean I have some mystical knowledge that you don't. You and I think know the same person. And I will say, and I'm not saying this to sort of throw a wrench in it, she speaks very highly of you. So even though you might hold this opinion, she still thinks very highly of you. So nothing you've said or done has made her not believe in you as a talent or a person or somebody that she worked with for 10 years. And I'm not saying this to defend her or wave the white flag, just like what I was saying about John. I'm telling you what I know. The person I know can lead this company to a new place because she's willing to give it the chance that it can have. She's not stuck and moribund in a particular way of wrestling that's stuck in the past. And if I'm part of the change, I would love to be part of that change. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm saying is that even that possibility is what makes it exciting for me.
Yeah. And Billy, I hear what you're saying, but you got to understand the view from my seat and my perspective is this. Here's the view from my seat and my perspective. Okay. Vince Russo was the head writer of Raw when we drew the highest ratings in the history of wrestling. That will never be duplicated as far as I'm concerned. I worked under Dixie Carter. Okay. And all it took is somebody else in Dixie's ear. And a lot of times it was the power play. It was the old power play. So I went for 10 years. She had Vince Russo there, the guy who was right for WWE. I went there for 10 years, not having free reign to do what I needed to do. So I have that experience, and I know the impact that other people had on her being in her ear.
Let me ask you a question then, because I'm intrigued by this. If you had the power and or the opportunity that you're talking about, what would you have done with the company?
We were doing it, Billy. There was
but then explain to me what happened, because this is history. I wasn't.
Okay, I'll tell you exactly in a nutshell, Billy. I was working under Jeff Jarrett. You know, Jeff Jarrett was head of creative. I was working under Jeff. I was never in charge of creative. The situation blows up with the angles. Jeff gets sent home. Okay. Now, keep in mind, Billy, up to that point, one of the problems TNA always had was, since Jeff was booking, Jeff was the champion. Okay. So now there was an opportunity.
I seem to remember him going over a few times.
Yeah. So now there was an opportunity to change that. And Billy, I'll never forget this. I was on vacation with my family. And Billy, I never took a vacation in the wrestling business. You understand that. I'm literally in California, and I get a call from Dixie Carter, like, just, Vince, you need to help me. You need to. Jeff is gone. You need to take over creative. I'm depending on you. Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Dixie, relax. I've been there before. I've done this before. I will handle it. Matt Conway was working under me. And you could verify all this through Matt. You could verify it all, Billy. Matt Conway was working under me. We made a concerted effort to make the transition over the TNA original guys. You can look at that point in time. That's when AJ Styles became the TNA World Champion. So Matt and I knew we had to take a step forward to take a step back to take a couple of steps forward. We know that. We had to tear down the foundation and build it back up. We knew that.
So let me stop you right there.
Right.
Can you accept the premise? Even if you don't agree, can you accept the premise that that's what we're doing?
Yes, but I don't think you have the right people you have the right people up top to achieve that. And I'm not talking talent-wise. I'm talking office-wise.
Well, that's interesting, because if you think we have talent, then that's a good place to start.
Yeah, I do think you have talent. There's no question about that. I don't have not one bad thing to say about any person I saw on the show. So, Billy, let me get back. So now me and Matt are pretty much rebranding. Billy, what do you think's going on during that time? Dixie Carter's having meetings with Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff behind Vince Russo's back. I have no idea. The next thing I know, Vince, I hired Hulk Hogan. Eric Bischoff's coming with him, by the way. And also, Billy, you got to understand, I'm told, Vince, as far as creative goes, Eric's only going to have say-so over Hogan's storylines. I just want you to know that. You're the head writer.
This sounds like a wrestling angle.
Yeah, well, the following week, Eric Bischoff is sitting in on the creative meetings with full-fledged 100% say.
I've heard the story. I can confirm. I've heard
the rest is history. So that's what happened. But see, you drew me off base now. What was I saying? Because I wanted to make a very important point to you. What was I saying, Billy? Can you remember?
Well, I'd asked you how you would have booked it.
Yeah, well, that's how we would. But Billy, here's the thing that I was saying. So she had Vince Russo, did not use Vince Russo. Okay, this is what I'm seeing, bro. We now have the creator from the Smashing Pumpkins walk in the door, who has a rich knowledge and experience in the wrestling business. And Billy, listen, I'm not saying this to kiss your ass, bro. I think you're on the genius level. I tell everybody that I speak to. Like, when we have conversations, a lot of what you say goes over my head because I'm a simpleton and you're a genius. So I think Billy's on the genius level. Now, me and Billy have multiple conversations. I think everything Billy, Corgan says to me is spot on. Spot on. Spot on. How long have you been working with them now?
Oh, I think over a year.
You've been working with them over a year, and she still is not doing things the way Billy Corgan thinks they should be done. Billy, I'm sorry. That tells me everything I need to know. I mean, I'm sorry, bro. She had me. Now she's got you. Everything you're saying is spot on. I watched a show last night. It's Wrestling 101. Nothing has changed. You've been there a year. Everything you're saying makes sense. Why aren't we listening to this guy who created an empire in the music? And what you know what it is, Billy, at this point, honestly? If I'm Dixie Carter, what do I have to lose? Billy, go. Do it 100% your way. You're in charge. What? Hey, Billy, that's what Vince did with me. Before the Attitude Era, bro, we had Mantar, Freddie Joe Floyd, TL Hopper. WWE was in the shitter. Vince McMahon basically said, what do I got to lose with this idiot magazine writer? What, like, literally, what do I go, Vince? What does she have to lose with letting you do it this way?
Well, it's very flattering that you'd even think I could do it. So I appreciate the compliment. I can't, look, I remember talking to...
Billy, my blood pressure's going on. You made my blood pressure going on. I want you to know right now, I feel my blood running to my head out of frustration because I believe in you. I believe what you're saying, but I don't think you're put in a system where you can succeed. Go ahead.
Okay, because you said the company can't succeed with Dixie at the helm, but now you're saying it could succeed with be at the head of creative if she's still at the helm.
Right, but she would never make that decision.
Well, Dixie's just a smarter person than most people think.
Okay.
The character she plays on television is not the person behind the scenes.
Okay, you've been there a year, bro. I don't know what we're waiting for.
I'm trying to move you towards some hope. That's all. Just some hope.
Bro, wouldn't a hope spot be Vince Russo offers you his services for absolutely free? Vince Russo and Billy Corgan get along ideally. Vince Russo taught Matt Conway everything he knows. Like, it was a father-son relationship.
It would be better if we booked it like wrestling. It would fall into two factions: who's running the company. That would be good to book.
Okay, Billy, listen.
Me and you do a hostile takeover. The protege Matt, he's wavering, but then he turns against you and he signs.
Bro, would that not be better than what's on right now?
I don't know.
Then a guy cleaning a toilet. I mean, quite frankly, Billy. I mean, come on, Billy. Listen, bro. You know I love you. You know this passion comes out of frustration. It's not former employee John Gaborik laughed at you while he was firing you. It's none of that. It's like I watched the show, Billy. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched the show and I'm like, get your head out of your freaking ass. Like, let's go. Come on. Let's go. And it's not you. It's not. I know your talents. I know it's this. I know it's this. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't know when it's time to pull the. So it's frustration, Billy. That's all.
Let me relay a conversation because I think this is a good way to kind of wrap it all up.
All right.
I was talking. I went to a WrestleMania. It was around the time that JR had been removed from commentary. They were obviously going towards Michael Cole, but JR was there. And I know JR a little bit, and I'm sitting with JR, and we're having a drink, and I said, JR, I mean, I can't believe you're not going to be calling this WrestleMania. And he said, look, it's the billionaire's toy, and it's his toy to play with how he wants. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, you know what I mean? You should start a wrestling company. I should start a wrestling company. The fans should start a wrestling company.
I agree.
It's not our thing to play with.
I agree 1,000%.
I'm an employee, and you were once an employee. So I think it's intriguing, but at the end of the day, only the person who owns the company can make those decisions for their own reasons, which involve family and all sorts of other things. So I'm not saying that somebody should like a product if they don't like it, just because I'm painting a sympathetic portrait. What I'm saying is sometimes those decisions look a certain way from the outside, and sometimes they even look a different way from the inside. But at the end of the day, if we want to do it our own way, we should do it our own way.
I agree.
As long as I'm willing to be an employee, then I have to go along with what my boss wants. So far, as an employee of the company, I'm satisfied with my relationship with my two bosses. I've been treated incredibly. I have total respect. I don't win every battle, but I've won more battles lately than not. I feel like I have the respect of Matt and Dave, who I like a lot and I love working with a lot. And I think they're both talented people, much to your to argue the point. The point is I feel good about the situation. I don't feel good about where the ratings are at. I don't feel that we're in the position that we would hopefully be in. And I feel we have a responsibility of talent to do our best to try to sort that picture out. But I'm not here as a cheerleader. I'm only here as somebody who can go do something else if I wanted to. I could go start my own wrestling company if I wanted to. I choose to work for this company because I like the relationships I have. I like the talent that I work with. I'm proud of what we've been able to do with what we've got. It doesn't mean it doesn't deserve to be criticized. There's plenty to be critical about. But at the end of the day, I personally have seen improvement in the company and how we book and how we go about our business since the time I've walked through the door. If I've been part of the positive part of that change, I would hope so. And that's all I can say. You know what I mean? Because it's not to diminish what you're saying, because I think a lot of what you say has merit. But at the end of the day, we're not in the position to make those decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Now, Billy, I everything you said, I agree 1,000% with. I mean, Billy, listen, I'm going to be honest with you. That's why I left. The decisions being made, I did not agree with it at the time. So I had two choices. I could have stayed there and been a frustrated employee. I don't think that would have benefited for the company. So I decided to leave. I made that
personally, and I've told you this, and I have no problem saying, I wish you were still there.
Yeah.
I wish you were still there. I would love to be in the trench with you and work and pick your brain and understand how you see things. Because I every time you and I have talked wrestling, I learn from you. So, I have no problem celebrating you as the visionary you are. I think it's a travesty you're not currently working in the wrestling business, doing what you're best at. I think it's fantastic what you're doing with the show, and I applaud you for persevering and being successful. And I've heard improvement in the show and all that stuff, so I can only applaud you in that. But at the end of the day, I wish you were still with the company. I can't speak to that. That's not my decision to make, but I wish you were, because I know that we would be a better company with you there. That's what I'd have to say about it.
Billy, what's great? And Billy, I know, and listen, maybe it's for other reasons. Like my co-host, Jeff Lane, smartened me up about this. I know, and we'll address this and then I'll let you go, bro, because you gave me so much of your time and this was great, but this is how I want to wrap it up. I was told that you recently shut down your Twitter account.
That's true.
Okay. What was it because of you just did not, bro, listen, I'm at the same place with you, Billy. I don't want negative. I can't stand negativity.
No, it wasn't the negativity.
What was it? That's what I want to ask you.
No, in fact, and I've told this story a few times. A week after I shut it down, Twitter contacted me and got me on the phone and said, why'd you quit? And I said, well, you guys aren't doing anything for me. And they said, well, what does that mean? And I said, look, I only have 300,000 followers. And I know it's not as many as some people, it's nothing to shake your head at, but I said, you don't treat people like me correctly in the way you run your business, because they treat everybody the same. So somebody who sits there on there and flames people all day and builds a following.
Great point.
Is treated the same way by Twitter as somebody who has a business.
Great point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not. So they tried to kind of sort of change that with the verified check, as if to say, you're officially Vince Russo. You're somebody in the world. It's very easy to be critical if you don't have anything to lose. Okay, there are people who are professional trolls. That's fine. It's almost so boring. It's not even worth talking about anymore. It wasn't the negativity. It wasn't that anybody could say anything, because they could say anything on Facebook and they can say anything on Instagram. It's that the business model of Twitter is not fair to people who actually bring people to the table.
That's a great point, bro, Billy. I never looked at it that way. That's a great point. Billy, after this interview, would you categorize me as a professional troll? Billy, here's what I was going to say.
You're a provocateur.
Bro, Billy, do you know how much better off the wrestling business would be if fans and people in the business could have these type of conversations?
Well, it's not that kind of business, though, generally speaking.
But I love this. I knew I could say anything to you. And Billy, you got to understand, so I know I'm not right all the time. I mean, I totally get that. I know I'm Italian. I wear my emotions on my sleeve. I know I say things I shouldn't say. But here's the beautiful part of it. I know I can say it to somebody like you, and I know somebody like you understands somebody like me. So, like, being able to have these conversations with you is an absolute gift.
Well, thank you. I haven't done a lot of interviews about the company lately. It's not that I don't want to promote the company. I just feel a lot of people are running angles. They're just running a different version of an angle. They're running their own angle on the company online. For a while it was the company's going up in flames, and then it all started with all the Meltzer stuff, and you and I had talked about that. And to me, those are people in business for themselves, and that's fine. They can be, they should do whatever they want. When you understand this, when you work in essence the extension of the locker room, you're backstage. You're watching people put their bodies on the line. They want to get ahead. They want to provide for themselves, their families. They want to become stars. They want to be the best they can be. You have a responsibility that's greater than, hey, that sucked. You know what I mean? And I'm proud of the fact that at least as somebody who's come in from the outside, not a wrestling insider, I don't know what that means, but apparently I'm not it. I'm proud that I've been able to form the relationships and keep perspective on the fact that, look, we're all human beings, perfectly imperfect. And that's why even I mentioned because I've had many private conversations with Dixie, and at some point the conversation wound around you. She has nothing but love and affection for you. So what that tells me is the man that I know is the man that she knows. Like, she doesn't know a different Vince Russo than I know. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So to me, that's what makes wrestling interesting. The personal relationships, the familial, people have falling outs and they make up, the band gets back together, the tag team gets back together and go one more run for the gold. I still think there's plenty of hope spots in this company. And so I'm excited about that. And so I don't mind talking about it with you, because I do believe at the end of the day that a true fan, and I do believe you are a true fan, and as somebody who worked within the company, you do want the company to be its best. You don't get off on the idea like, TNA is going down in flames. You're not that type of person.
No. That doesn't do anybody any good, Billy. Anybody. If you're a wrestling fan and that's what you're hoping for, you're not a wrestling fan. Billy, I got to ask you one last question. That's driving me crazy. This Hardy movie that I saw last night. Billy, please. Because Billy, I don't know the answer. I think I know the answer to this. Can you please clarify this for me? I watched it. I was entertained. Bro, the key word with me is different. Anything different, entertaining.
Okay, it was different and it was entertaining, right?
It was different. It was entertaining. It was outside of the box. You got me out of the arena. All those things.
Good.
I'm assuming, Billy, because I'm not sure. I'm assuming I'm supposed to take this as being campy and not serious.
Can't really get into that, but I think it's tremendous.
I think it's tremendous, but Billy, I'm just going to tell you this from my seat. It especially came off campy with the finish. And that's why, like, I'm when I saw the finish, I'm like, oh, okay, I got this. I think this is supposed to be campy, but bro, I'm thoroughly entertained by it.
Well, as you know, and I don't think I'm letting anything out. The Hardys have a great vision for who they are and the way they see themselves, and they have such an amazing, almost one of a kind connection with fans.
Yep.
And as much as Jeff was the bigger name, years ago, and was the sort of the rock star of the two, Matt has proven over time to be just as valuable and just as big a star in his own right. So you have two brothers, unlike any brother team ever, who've gotten over in ways that no one could have ever imagined.
Agreed.
And in many ways anticipated the business that was to come. They were in many ways the video game generation before it got there.
1,000% agree.
So as you know, and Matt has a fantastic mind for wrestling. There are things that and I would put Matt in the visionary class. There are things that he gets into where I don't think he necessarily always knows where it's going to go either.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But he trusts himself, and we certainly trust him to make sure that it all pays off in the end in a way that makes the journey worth it.
Yeah.
And Matt, probably as much as any talent I've ever worked with, his vision of how he wants to make something work, I'm willing to take that ride because he sees it in a way that is very unique. And certainly as a fan and somebody that I get to work with, he continues to impress me in that way. So I heard about this new character because obviously I wasn't there. And I talked to, Jeremy, because he was involved in that shoot and stuff like that. And I hear about it, but I'm telling you, it got me in the right way. It's like, where is this going, right? It asks the eternal question, where is this going? So yeah, we can pick it apart here and there, but at the end of the day, the fact that he got us to ask that question,
Absolutely.
where is this going, means
right?
It's working. That's Vince Russo 101.
And you said it earlier in the interview, bro. You said it earlier in the interview, which is, part of the crux. You said it early in the interview. Take chances, roll the dice. Matt Hardy believes in himself. He had the idea. He had the vision. Because of his confidence, he knew he could get it over. He knew he was taking.
How many people who have as great a career as Matt's had, are as over as Matt is, would take that kind of chance? No,
bro. I agree with you. Absolutely.
That's why you must step back if you're a fan and say, hey, you know what? That guy knows something I don't know. Yeah. It's like I've said it. When I hear a Neil Young album that I don't like, I give it a few years and I put it back on and I realize that I missed something.
Yeah.
That Neil Young knows more than I do. And I would say the same thing. Matt Hardy knows more than I do. There's something about Matt Hardy's vision that's particular. It shocks you because you're like, wow, I would have never thought of that. But I found myself completely intrigued.
Bro. I had that experience, Billy, with Crazy Sting. Where after 25 years, all of a sudden he's the reincarnation of Keith Ledger, and he pulled it off. Are you kidding me? I mean, so I know exactly where you're coming from, bro. And you know what? People that take chances, those are the people that tend to go to the next level, in my opinion. Yeah. And Billy, one more note that I want to give you that might help you out. But my buddy Jeff Lane, the co-host, who hadn't watched the show for a while either, bro, he absolutely fell in love with and went on and on and on, which shows you, bro, we looked at this with a total open mind. Bro, he fell in love with this Allie character, just so you know. I'm just telling you.
She's tremendous.
Yeah, he literally he put her all right, Billy, bro. I think this is important for every wrestling fan to listen to. Man, there's nobody else I could have brought on this show that would have been more open and more honest than you. And I know that, bro. I don't bring people on the show when I know I'm going to get the company line. It's a waste of everybody's time. We got honesty from you here. We didn't agree on everything, but I'll tell you this, man. I respect you more than before the interview, and I didn't even think that was possible.
Well, thank you, Vince. Always fun to talk to you.
It's right about time again to swerve again, confuse the general fans again. Add another swerve and then put it on a pole again. Put it on a pole again. Put it on the pole again. And our square to quad is gonna get emotional as I wait to overbook the damn cards.